I would like to start with a quote. The larger issue facing Europe, inclusive activities of the European Union and other transnational bodies that undermine political liberty and sovereignty, migration policies that are transforming the continent and creating strife, censorship of free speech, and suppression of political opposition, creating birth rates and loss of national identities and self-confidence. Quote finished. This was not from Russia, the quote. That was released the day before yesterday from the American administration, the Trump administration. I just want to ask, this is fundamental questions raised. It's a criticism of us for not being democratic, not allow free speech, not allowing this continent to take care of itself. I mean, I think in my years of politics, I never experienced anything near to this insulting way of treating an ally. What do you say to that? What are the consequences of this? How would you describe the US if you should give a description of that in the present situation? And when this is serious, it's not just because of the insulting tone, which we have heard before from this administration. It has wide-ranging consequences for the cooperation, because you can cooperate with allies with whom you share values. Which values do we share for the time being? With an administration who is not for green transition, who is not for international strong bodies, who are not supporting Ukraine, who are a hindrance for peace in the Middle East. Thank you.
Thank you, Willy. For the left, Ms. Hassan, I understand.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, Mrs. Kallas. Subsequent to Mrs. von der Leyen's announcement in her State of the Union speech in September, sanctions were proposed on Israeli ministers Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, and also against violent settlers. And in addition, it was proposed to suspend the trade part of the association agreement. But since the ceasefire, you yourself have recognized that the ceasefire has changed the situation, and I'm quoting there. And so that means that you're suggesting reviewing this idea of sanctions against Israel. Yesterday, the head of the Israeli army announced that the yellow line that divides the Gaza Strip and means that the Israeli army occupies 58% of Gaza is Israel's new border. That's what the general said. So that's de facto annexation of 62% of the Gaza Strip. In the West Bank, there's effective annexation of most of it by Israel. 10,000 Palestinian political prisoners, cases of torture that have been widely documented, also by UN bodies, so we can't doubt their reliability. We have Israel's genocidal intentions vis-à-vis the Palestinians, which was recalled by a recent report by Amnesty International. So a very simple question for you. What is the point of all this efforts you're making to support the Palestinian Authority if you don't do the upstream work which would enable the Palestinian Authority to do its work properly, i.e. sanctioning Israel? And what about the issue of genocide, a question which you've dodged for around 2 years and something which many international observers believe is unchanged? Thank you.
Thank you. And to conclude the round of coordinators for the ESN, Mr. Zell.
Vielen Dank, Herr Vorsitzender, und vielen Dank, Frau Kallas, dass Sie uns.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mrs. Kallas, for being here. Well, I can't really understand the irritation on the US strategy that we're seeing here, because their analysis is correct. Europe is destroying itself with a failed migration policy, failed climate policies which destroy our competitiveness in our industry, and also through censorship which is undermining democratic discourse in Europe. So that is all absolutely correct. And relations with Washington are excellent. I mean, I represent the strongest party in Germany, and next week we'll be traveling to Washington with a large delegation. We have contacts right at the top. Unfortunately, when it comes to peace negotiations with regard to Ukraine, Europe is not involved. And we regret that, because a strong Europe should have a strong voice on the international stage. US Special Envoy visited, that's Mr. Witkoff, and he was visiting, but he was not seen by the VP for foreign and security policy. Now, we've also got this scandal with regard to your predecessor, Mrs. Mogherini. Now, we've been transferring massive amounts of money to Ukraine, but we've known that it's corrupt for years now. Anti-corruption authorities in Ukraine are being acted against by Zelensky, and he is refusing to look into where the corruption comes from and what's happening. So there are accusations against Zelensky, but there are accusations against the European External Action Service as well. So how are you going to ensure that the money that's being sent to Ukraine isn't simply spent on golden toilets, etc.? Thank you.
That's the first round of the coordinators. I will now give the floor to Kaja Kallas to respond, and then we will have a second round. Colleague, if you want to take the floor, more or less all of you in the room want to take the floor, but in case the few of you who have not indicated to take the floor, please indicate it to Marty, and then we will move on according to the Dohon procedure. But first we have Kaja Kallas to respond for roughly 10 minutes.
Thank you, and thank you for all your questions. So first on Ukraine. We see the agreements and the discussions between Ukraine and United States, and then United States and Russia. What we clearly see is that there is not much pressure on Russia, and that's why we continue with this part, because we can't end up in a situation where there's peace agreement that actually rewards aggression, because then we will see more of it. We have, of course, put forward, points what are red lines for us. I mean, the respect for territorial integrity and sovereignty of a nation, and return Ukrainian children. All these points we have. I think it is important that we keep on raising these issues when it comes to also putting pressure on Russia. And there, actually, the reparations loan comes into play, and the work is ongoing. We have the UCO coming up next week. Hopefully we'll get an agreement there. We are not there yet, but the work is ongoing. And this is important because it could be a game changer in many ways. I mean, first, it will send a signal to Russia that it can't outlast us. It will send also signal to Ukraine that we are helping them. And this is, I think, important in many ways. It's also a signal that you can't walk away with the damages that you are causing. When you asked about the US and the defense part of it, we are doing this. We are working very intensively with our, defense ministers. We just had the meeting with the EU defense ministers, and I really want to have more of those meetings with them, because they really need to, change the mindset from the national to the European, like, other ministers have. Because like you rightly say, you have the defense budgets, but the coordination between the defense budgets, because it's a national competence and it will remain a national competence, how can we do this? So we have proposed capability coalitions to really be led by the member states, but we can help them to, coordinate and come up with the joint procurements, come up with the joint projects, because again, some capabilities are too big for any of them or any countries alone to procure, and some are just, again, the interoperability and all of this. So we are intensively working on this. And really, that's why we have the roadmap, and we're really pushing the member states. So on one hand, they're all saying that, it's a member state competence. Member states should be in the driver's seat, but then, the car should also get moving, which is important. Even if you are in the driver's seat, it's not just to be in the driver's seat, but actually drive. And that is what we are trying to push from our side. The question on partnerships on defense and with Turkey, the SAFE is now the deadline was the end of November. So those countries who are there are there, and of course in the SAFE you also have the part where member states can choose their own partners, and there are limitations how much you can procure from elsewhere. So there are limitations. These limitations very well. Some of the member states have issues with Turkey's bigger participation, and that has been counted on. Now, on your other question, on the U.S. attacks on the European way and the strategy, I think we definitely should, and that's also answer to your question. I think we need to be more self-confident because, all of these things, you read them and regarding Europe, this is not true. I mean, it seems to me it's made to be a provocation so that we would react because, it is, again, the attention. Maybe, it's a paper, what we see, and also not very much following on different strategies, but that's beside the point. I think, we should be self-confident. We know that these things are not true. I mean, there was also article in Financial Times showing that, the issues that they are pointing out in the national security strategy are no worse in Europe than they are in America. But again, I think we are here now already for a year, and we should be, calm in this regard and work with what we can. It is true.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Kaja, for your report. I will be very strict. Pressure on Russia is not a peace plan. EU needs to formulate in a single document its own peace plan proposal. My second question is about frozen assets. If there is no agreement on the 18th December Council, then what? How EU will provide the financial support which Ukraine needs badly? And my third question is, does EU has a plan to support Ukraine if United States will pressure Ukraine to accept territorial concessions to Russia by deciding not to provide intelligence to Ukraine? Thank you.
Thank you. Tonino Pizzula.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Madam High Representative, for your assessment concerning plethora of challenges that we as the EU are facing. I would therefore like to ask you a question concerning security challenges in the Western Balkans you didn't mention so far. How do you see the overall security situation in the region, and what do you see as ongoing challenges? We do see presence and influence of assertive out-of-EU powers there, especially Russia in Serbia. That powers unfortunately combine efforts with some political forces coming within the European Union. Finally, I would like to raise a topic of the dialogue between Serbia and Kosovo. How do you see the stale dynamic of the dialogue, and do you believe that the dialogue in its current format is the way forward, or should we consider possible revision of the approach? Thank you.
Dear Madam Kallas, I honestly ask you, what do you think? What serves citizens' interests better? Continuing war or peace? Hundreds of thousands have lost their homes, and people in Ukraine are surviving for years and years. And there is a danger that these horrors would spread to Europe. And I come from that area, and there's another lady, Marta Sebestyén, who comes from Transcarpathia, and she has lost her brother because he had to go and enroll in the army. How many of such tragic losses will people have to suffer? And you can deny it, but the situation is the same. You can see the reports of the Ukrainian Human Rights Commissioner. People are forced to join the army. They are very cruelly treated. You are just sitting sitting by, and you watch a flowering corruption and this situation continuing. Thank you.
Next is Helmut Brandstätter, Renew.
Thank you, Chair. High Commissioner, it was very good you said Europe has to be more self-confident towards the United States. I agree. The question is, how do we show our self-confidence? Just imagine there was a European strategy explaining that America is not a democracy, that we want the change of a regime, that we don't want to accept their laws, and so on and so forth. I mean, they would have told us very exactly what they think. And that's what I miss. Shouldn't we be more exact to explain that the way the Americans are treating us is not, we cannot accept it. But my question is, are we strong enough? Are we united enough? Are we strong enough? And what can we do, what can you do to show them that we are strong enough? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is our Vice Chair, Hanna Jalul. Muru.
Well, thank you very much indeed, and thank you for coming here. I would say that your statements are always commonplaces, and and you talk a lot, but you never say anything. Really disappointed indeed, and I think we need to prepare more in depth all the topics we are talking about. So you talk about accountability, but you have said anything about the 70,000 Palestinians killed, which it is very disappointing. And of course, we are all with the ceasefire. And I guess what Hamas have done, of course. But I mean, we have extreme right government that is violating ceasefires daily. More than 300 Palestinians killed since the ceasefire. We want peace, but also we want to stop the killing of the Palestinians. Any mention, but we talk about accountability when we talk about other people. Second, we talk about the United States self-confidence. How are we going to have self-confidence if our High Representative doesn't defend ourselves? How are we going to be self-confident if when you talk about the negotiations in Russia, we are not in the table and they are asking us to give territory to Russia like this for free? We want to have self-confidence. Europe has to be in the negotiations. We have to be very tough in these issues, and we cannot talk about anything that's not territorial integrity of Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Next is Francisco Milan Mon.
Gracias, thank you. I'm going to speak in Spanish. Señora Kallas, si queremos ser...
Mrs. Kallas, well, if we want to be a global player, we need to boost our relations with other regions that share ideas, values and principles with us. Latin America, for example. I welcome that the EU-CELAC summit took place and that you were there. I'm rapporteur for the political part of the Mercosur agreement, and I'd like to highlight the importance of that text. And I hope that it will come into force as soon as possible, and I'm sure you'll do everything you can to ensure that it's signed. Let me now refer to Venezuela. I think we need to be clearer when it comes to Venezuela. Our position cannot only highlight the importance of maritime security in the Caribbean and the non-use of force. We also need to talk about defending human rights and fundamental freedoms and the need for democratic change in Venezuela. Maria Machado will be receiving a Nobel Prize today or tomorrow, so we need to welcome that and say that we welcome it out loud. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is our colleague Asens Rodra from the Greens.
Buenos días, señora Kallas. Gracias por venir hoy aquí.
Good morning, Ms. Kallas. Thank you for coming to the Parliament today. I don't know whether you saw what happened in Jerusalem yesterday. Israel went into a UN building, they stole material, equipment, and they took down the UN flag and they put up their flag. Are we supposed to do the same at the European Union institutions? Should we take down the EU flag and put up the American flag and the Israeli flag? Because it seems that we're just being the puppets in this new imperial order of Trump and Netanyahu. You say that we need to defend the rule-based order, but in fact you're doing the opposite. the International Court of Justice says that we're dealing with a genocide, but Europe continues to collaborate with the genocide with its weapons and its money. On top of that, we aren't accepting what the International Court of Justice resolutions say. We're actually accepting sanctions from Trump on the UN. So we're not doing enough to protect our institutions. This is inconsistent. If you believe in this international order, you would do something to protect it and you wouldn't go along.
We have had these peace plans that we put forward that are idealistic because, we can't push Ukraine into these concessions because I think it's fundamentally wrong. And that's why we need to have these requirements and we have drafted those, what we need to see from Russian side as well, because the Russian side is the problem. I mean, in last 100 years, they have attacked 19 countries, some as many as 3 or 4 times, and none of these countries has ever attacked Russia. So that's why, right now they're just pretending. Now, why I think it's dangerous, and we see this actually happening, is that everybody's walking into those Russian traps, putting the pressure on Ukraine because otherwise, Russia is not coming to the table, and then you will get, the baseline where Ukraine has agreed to concessions and Russia not. So that is the baseline where it only can get worse. So that's why we have had this very, very clear stance that we should not walk into those traps, and we have clear points that we want to see. And again, I want to stress, have some self-confidence in this regard that for any peace plan to work, it needs Europeans. So, you can agree whatever, but if the Europeans or Ukrainians are not agreeing to this, then it just doesn't work. So we have leverage in this regard to also make asks for Russia. Now, President Costa has said that we will not leave the European Council next week before we have the decision on the financing of Ukraine. Whether it's reparations loan or something else, he has been very firm on this, and the work is ongoing. Now, Western Balkans. This is, very important. Our neighborhood, one is the enlargement process that is ongoing, and I really hope that we will see positive developments when it comes to some of the Western Balkan countries to move forward. At the same time, there also needs to be this confidence building between the communities in the Western Balkans, and we have been trying to do this because there are tensions building up. I've personally, did the reach out to Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, bring them together. Can we move on, small steps so that actually, we come from the place where everybody's saying that, you did this to me and accusing each other to the point where we can focus on these things never happening again. And there, actually, I think the enlargement process is a very good tool to agree and move, little steps which are needed. Belgrade-Pristina dialogue has been stalling right now because we don't have a government in Kosovo. So although I have the agreement from the political level as well to sit down. But what I want to stress here, when I go to the Western Balkans and talk to the young people, I really stress to my team as well, we need to work with the young people because, if the young people who have been born after all these atrocities happened still have the same kind of hate and attitude, then we're never gonna get there. The normalization of the relationship that is actually required and needed for both of them. So really to have these confidence building measures also with the young people to get over. Okay, that was the past. Let's focus on on the future, so that we see not the future through the past, but actually the past through the future where we want to get. So I'm personally devoting a lot of time to this, although yes, it doesn't show because it's not that public as all the other conflicts that we have, but I'm working on that. And on that also, I apologize for not coming to your event, and I apologize for all the MEPs who have invited me to come to your events, but I just, have seen that there are 365 days in a year and not more, so I apologize for that. But it doesn't mean that we don't take these issues seriously. What you're pointing out is a very regrettable incident, and there will be a written follow-up because I didn't know about these things. As general, I can say that the ambassadors that I've met are very dedicated people, very hardworking people, representing Europe well. But of course, if there's any feedback, then please turn to us. But I think we can't just blame or put a mark on all of them. Europe is standing for peace. Europe is a peace project. This is what we are working on. Now, the problem is, of course, that who doesn't want peace is Russia. You need at least two to want peace. And I remind you that Ukraine agreed to unconditional ceasefire already in February, whereas Russia is just keeping bombing Ukrainian cities. And by the way, 93% of Russian targets have been civilian targets. Hospitals, schools, apartment buildings, energy infrastructure to cause as much pain and suffering for the people. So it is clear that the one that doesn't want peace is Russia. And that's why, again, I come to the point where we have to pressure Russia so that it would come from the point of, pretending to negotiate to actually negotiate, and we will have peace. And the first step would be ceasefire, to actually sit down and talk. Then on the self-confidence again, my feeling is that if we go into the fight in pointing fingers, we can also point a lot of fingers what is wrong in America, but this is not the way we work. We are not going to meddle with the internal affairs of other countries. What is important is that what we do regarding this, and that's why, all the steps we are taking, I'm not saying the words, but I'm saying in practice, we are, building up our own defense. We are building up our own defense industry. We are working on getting rid of dependencies, because the dependencies also hurt us. That's why building partnerships with the countries all around the world. And I can tell you that there is a lot of appetite for working with us because we are the reliable and credible partner. And that is what we need to use, not the words, not go into word fights, who said what about, when we know it's really not true. So that is what we need. On Venezuela, where do I have the paper? Yes. So we keep defending that yes, you are there. That Maduro lacks legitimacy, and it's also important for us to keep the presence on the ground at the same time. And we are in contact with the representatives of the opposition. And also we support the fight against the transnational organized crime. When I was in Latin America, when we had the EU CELAC summit, then I was listening very carefully what the Latin American and Caribbean countries were saying. It's a problem. These are global challenges that require also global solution when it comes to drug trafficking. Very much the drugs are coming to European countries, and they have a big issue with the gangs that are really taking hold of different countries. And then I come to my first round of answers is like, really we are in this moment where rules, like it's a complete chaos. Rules just don't apply. And that's why we are the ones who have been fighting and defending the rules. And I must say that all around the world, we have a lot of countries who are looking up at us that, are you doing this? Are you defending the international order? So we are also backing you. And that's why I think this is extremely important. Every step we take has to be in accordance with international law. Then on Jerusalem, what I want to stress, European Union is not sending any weapons. It's member states who are having these agreements. And clearly, I mean, we have to do more. That's why I have pushed also regarding the violent settlers, for example, that we have clear sanctions. And there we have 26 countries in favor and 1 against. So we actually have a broad majority to move on with this, but it has been hard, and we are in contact with the Israelis all the time, and also the regional partners to really call on them to stop the action, and that's why, I mean, right now, as we have the ceasefire, it's a fragile time. We need to build up the international stabilization force, but of course the question is about the mandate, which is not clear when we talk about, the countries around the world who have said that they are willing to send troops to keep the peace in the international stabilization force. Then nobody of them wants to be the one who is disarming Hamas. So it has to be Palestinian police who does that, and that's why we have offered to train the Palestinian police on the EUPOL COPS mission to really have the ownership of the Palestinians in the processes that are going on there. Nuremberg, actually, the book is even better, but I understand where you're taking these parallels. And I have a good news for you, which is that on the 16th of December, so next week, we have in Hague the initialing of signing of the convention for the Claims Commission. So we are going, as we have pushed this specialized tribunal for the crimes of aggression forward, and these are little steps we do. So the signing will be in Hague Tuesday. So we haven't forgotten about this, and we work on the accountability. When it comes to the third countries, believe me, maybe I can't say it publicly here, but I have managed to convince some countries to not have meetings with Putin, because, I understand why Putin needs this. I don't understand why everybody else needs this, because he needs this to be recognized on the international arena like nothing has happened and nothing to see here. And this is one other point that I want to stress, is that it's also a narrative fight in the world. I mean, who is for peace? Who is for war? And Russia is trying to paint the picture that, we are the obstacle of peace, which is the opposite of truth, really. And we really need to reach out to the third countries all the time to explain what is at stake. Sometimes they listen. Sometimes they have much stronger ties with Russians. I don't know why, because usually we are giving them much more money. We are the biggest trading partners, or far larger than Russia, but somehow they still believe them. And Moldova, there is progress in the negotiations, and they are really doing well. And now, after the elections, as we put so much effort also into helping them to fight the foreign malign interference and influence, then this is really moving forward on a positive pace. And to your other question on the MFF and budget, I mean, there is not enough. So if you want an honest answer, we are struggling, of course, with the administrative budget of our 145 delegations. Like I said a year ago, I will not close any of the delegations, but the security issues in our delegations are also higher, so the needs actually for funding are higher. And then we have the Global Europe, where I also hope that you support the part of the budget, although it was already cut, and we need much more because the global challenges are much bigger. But we are not just, asking or requesting for more. We are actually doing also reforms on our side to be more effective, to be more agile, to be more relevant in the European sphere. And to your question on the UK, I was not part of the negotiations, and I must say I was also quite sad that it didn't reach an agreement. But again, as for the SAFE, UK can participate also via the bilateral agreements with the member states who are applying together with them. So 35% of those agreements can also come from others outside European Union. So they are definitely not out of the defence cooperation. Thank you.